Hey there, Professor Cloud here. I have now been playing Elden Ring for more than 55 hours, I believe it is, on one system, upwards of another 10 on another, and I've been playing around with a number of different builds. There's a lot of people out there who have created guides for the different classes or created their own hybrid builds, but the one thing that I found was that they were very, very shallow. And with a world as big as Elden Ring, with the number of items and options and changes that you can make throughout the journey of this game, it can be extremely difficult, one, to get started, but then two, how do you maintain that character moving forward? Once you've chosen your class, what are the best weapons? How quickly do you need to upgrade? Where are those upgrade items? And so on. So I thought what I would do is I would put together a getting started build for what I am calling the true samurai build. The true samurai to me is what you're seeing right there on the screen. It is a character who plays with a katana, usually two-handed, and a bow. Now, in Elden Ring, they have made this game much more approachable for many more players, but the bosses, some of the enemies, are still extremely difficult. And the samurai class is one of the hardest classes to start with, and I'll talk about why in a minute. In many cases of this game, you are not going to be able to melee through the entire game from beginning to end. You are maybe not even going to be able to range your way through from beginning to end. You need to have multiple options. And the only way to do that and start your way down that path from the beginning is setting yourself up for success. This guide, hopefully, will do that for the samurai class. Let's go ahead and get started with a brand new samurai character. And I'll just choose female, it really doesn't matter. Let me put in a name here. I'm just going to call this guide. And I have been going with mature, not that it makes any difference, but that's what I am. And your keepsake should always be the golden seed. I have never seen another reason for choosing any of the other keepsakes. Golden seed is by far the best. And then base template, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with what we're started with and go ahead and roll with it. Actually, before I do that, let me talk about a couple of things. Over on the left-hand or right-hand side are your standard character status attributes. We start at level 9. For the samurai, over the first 25 levels, maybe even as many as 30, you're really only going to want to focus on vigor and dexterity. You may be able to put a point here or there in mind to give you better magic for your skills. You might be able to put in another point or two into strength. You probably don't need to put anything into endurance because you're already going to have plenty of stamina. And you definitely are not going to need anything in intelligence, faith, or arcane because you are not going to be using spells in the first 25 or 30 levels. Your numbers are just too low. So you're going to focus on using the sword and the bow and getting them to the best levels that you can. And then you can start to diversify from that point forward. But let me get you to that point and help you know where everything is. Now, it's up to you as to whether or not you go through the entire tutorial. I am going to go ahead and go through the entire tutorial so that I can get some additional runes. Because I will not be leveling up much during the first few segments. We're just going to be focusing on getting our sword leveled up and getting our bow leveled up. Okay, so getting started right from the very beginning, I am actually going to make a really quick change. That's not what I wanted. And that is primarily putting my bow in my right hand and removing the shield altogether. I will not be using a shield at all in mine. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to. For me, I feel like, one, it adds too much weight. Trying to keep ourselves in a medium load for the equipment load as much as possible. I can almost guarantee you, unless you completely strip off all the armor, you're never going to get down to a light load. But then focusing on the bow as much as possible here at the beginning. One thing to point out here about the samurai build, learn to use your skills, or Ashes of War. That's going to be a big focus for the samurai in order for him to be successful. You cannot just use your blade or your bow. You can try, but it's going to be really difficult. I was able to beat Margit with just my sword, but it took 35 tries and 2 or 3 hours for me to find the right timing and do enough damage against him to get it done. So learn how to use your skills wherever possible. I am going to be starting with the bow so that I can get a nice shot off at the very beginning, and then I'll probably switch to the sword. I don't expect to actually beat this first tutorial boss, but I'm going to give it a try. They're too long. Oh, I'm dead. Yeah. You're supposed to die here anyway, but try and do a good showing. You'll notice I did, after I got the skill shot off with the bow, I did mostly use my unsheath skill ability for the katana, and focusing on having the right Ash of War on your katana will be important. The Ashes of War, which are special abilities that can be placed onto certain types of weapons. Some of them come with imbued skills, others do not. Some of them can be replaced, others cannot. But finding the right ones that are going to work with your playstyle, that are going to do damage, are important because they scale with the level of your weapon, not your level. Hence why I don't need to level up as early on as most people do, because I'm going to be focusing on using that skill to get me through the first few areas.
Don't worry, Torrent. Fortune is on her side. We found her here after all. One of her kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring. Even if it does violate the Golden Order.
So as I said, I'm going to go ahead and go through this initial tutorial area and take on the true tutorial boss. It's up to you as to whether or not you do or not. You're only going to get about 550 to 560 runes for all of the enemies. But I'll go ahead and do it, and I'll probably do it fairly quickly. And then we'll get out into the open world and start our, really, the true beginning of our first segment. So right now my flasks are set up 3-1 so that I can use my unsheath ability as much as possible. And remember, we also chose the golden seed to start with, so I will sit here and get myself a new flask charge. Okay, now we're at 4-1. close enough. Oh, yeah. That was the mighty shot or special skill of the bow. Something very important to learn to use. Makes clearing out areas, if you can see the enemies ahead of time, a lot easier. Just like the unsheath ability here at the beginning is important for stronger enemies when you're with the sword. You also saw me jumping a little while ago. Also very important, and then this is tremendously important, and you're going to see me use it a lot. And it's mostly going to be important here for the samurai class, because it will make some of the areas, especially out in the world, a whole lot easier to clear if you can go in hidden. And can do wonderful backstabs just like this. Okay. So I'm not... If you want to read along with the tutorial messages during your first playthrough, you certainly can. So I'm not going to talk through most of those items. Okay. This is the first tutorial boss. No hit the first boss. It's not that big of a deal, but you got to start somewhere if you're ever going to try and do a no-hit run. So that's really the tutorial area. That's all there is to it. Let's make sure we pick this up. And let's move on to the actual open world. So 592 runes are going to be what you'll get for all of those enemies and the Godric soldier. Boss, tutorial boss. I actually don't know how much the Scion Spider would get you if you were to actually be able to beat him. Okay, so each one of these segments are going to be geared towards a very specific purpose. Most of them either to collect upgrade materials or better skills or potentially just runes. All of it to set you up for success so that when you go to the first major legendary dungeon, Stormvale Castle, that you will have a build that you can work with to do good damage against the first major boss. And I'm going to do everything in my power to not spoil any of that story content, because I will get us to that point, and I will even show you a first attempt at that boss, knowing that I probably will not beat him first try. Now, this particular segment, we're going to focus on two things. Getting our horse, Torrent, setting up the first few sites of grace or checkpoints, keeping in mind, of course, that we can teleport at any point in time throughout the game as long as we're not in battle, back to any one of these sites of grace as long as we found them. But we're going to set ourselves up with the first few sites of grace, pick up our first sets of upgrade materials, kill our first set of enemies beyond what we just did, so that we can level up, get out, or not level up, sorry, but upgrade our sword for the first time, and then really truly start to enter into the game. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and skip past this guy. One quick thing, you'll notice here, I have no map. That is another thing that we will be focusing on as well, as getting our first few map pieces. So the first major location to go to is the Church of Ella. Oh yeah, no fall damage in this game. It's either you fall and take no damage, or you fall and die. Yeah, the first major location we're going to go to is this church right up here. Always go to any church that you happen to find. You will always get something special at any church that you do find. Almost all of them are going to give you a site of grace or checkpoint, and almost all of them are going to give you some kind of a special upgrade item. In this case, we're going to be getting our first upgrade material called a smithing stone. If you are using regular weapons, then smithing stones are going to be how you upgrade from +1 to +25. There are different levels of smithing stone. Each level will give you 3 levels of your weapon. So smithing stone level 1, you can see there in the square brackets, will get you up to +3, and so on. If you are using a special weapon, then somber smithing stones are going to be what we're going to use, but we will not be doing that in this guide. Then we have our first merchant here, and another site of grace. So as I mentioned, in these early parts, I am not going to be leveling up at all. I am going to only buy some more arrows.
And I can also see that you're not after my throat. Then why not purchase a little something? I am Kali, purveyor of fine goods. I am of a nomadic people, selling wares as I travel. The land has been tainted by madness since the shattering of the Elden Ring. It's only tarnished like yourself, who keep things from drying up entirely. Let's say you're a very welcome customer.
So in this particular case, I am going to focus on arrows and the cookbooks. But make sure you look at the cookbooks to see if the items that you can craft, which crafting is something that's available in this game, are going to be things that you're actually going to use. Bone arrows, glowstone invigorating cured meat, invigorating white cured meat. I am going to buy some arrows. I won't be able to buy the cookbook, but at some point I will buy the Nomadic Warriors cookbook #1 and the crafting kit. You have to have both of those in order to be able to actually do crafting. And you're going to want cracked pots eventually as well, because that's what's going to allow you to throw bombs. So in this case, I'm just going to work on arrows for right now. You're only allowed to carry 99 arrows of 2 different types. I don't know why the game does that. Should you buy more than 99, they will go into a chest type system, and then each time that you go to a site of grace, you'll be able to pull from them should you have run out. So in this case, I'm going to, let's see. I'm just going to buy 20. Hold on, how many do I have? I can't even see how many I have. So I'll just buy 20 more.
Goodbye. Nice to do business.
Okay, so from here we're going to go to the next major site of grace, and at that site of grace we'll be able to get our horse. Keep in mind, anytime you see one of these glowing skulls, break it open, more runes for you. Now, not a lot, but hey, at the very beginning, every rune counts. I'll go ahead on up here and kill this guy. And I did it badly. I wanted to sneak up on him, and I didn't. So there's a few soldiers here in the area that you can sneak up on and kill. Some of them are protecting things, like this guy. Rune fragment. You'll notice I'm picking up a number of different things, and they're all crafting materials. And as you use your bow more and more, you're going to find that you are going to want certain types of arrows that are only available via crafting materials. Now there is a cave over here. I'm not going to go into it yet. But you can if you want to. Not a requirement of this particular route, of this getting started route. Just remember that it's here and you can always come back to it. There is a site of grace in there if you want to go ahead and add it to your map. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and go over here and pick up the next site of grace. And sit at it so that I can refresh everything. And get introduced to
Greetings, traveler from beyond the fog. I am Melina. I offer you an accord. Have you heard of the Finger Maidens? They serve the Two Fingers, offering guidance and aid to the tarnished. But you, I am afraid, are maidenless. I can play the role of maiden, turning runes into strength to aid you in your search for the Elden Ring. You need only take me with you to the foot of the Erd Tree. Then it's settled. Summon me by grace to turn runes into strength. Ah, another matter. I bequeath to you this ring. Use it to traverse great distances. It will summon a spectral steed named Torrent. Torrent has chosen you. Treat him with respect.
So by getting to this site of grace, this is where we meet her. She is the one who provides us the level up option now at every site of grace. So it was important to get here as quickly as possible so that we could use our runes efficiently when possible. You'll also notice we can pass time should we want to do things at night. There are certain bosses, of course, that are only going to show up at night. Be aware of that. Also, manage our flasks. Do any spell memorization if you're of that class. And then, of course, sorting of your chest. So, I now have the ability to ride my new horse. And what I'm going to do is put that over here in my pouch so that I can very easily access it. So now all I have to do is hit Y and the up on the D-pad, and I will immediately call my horse. Now, that's the end of this first segment. In the next segment, we're going to clear out these rooms, get our first set of upgrade materials, and set ourselves up for a couple more sites of grace before going and really exploring an area that is going to help us with a lot of things moving forward.